Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about research. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, "Hi Frederick, do you research companies thoroughly before you get on a call with the recruiter for a software engineering job?" Nope. I do I usually do a very quick Google search or something like that and check the company website a little bit to just understand which industry we're dealing with and what type of company it is, because usually the when recruiters reach out to me, like, I'm full disclosure guys, I usually don't even read like what people are sending me. Like, I get way too much traffic for to keep track. I mean, I'm usually not looking for a job because I don't do a lot of like rotating. I don't just job hop around. I look for a specific position for specific things. And in my at least the past 1-2 years or whatever, I've been in a role where basically if you're gonna match what I do in that role, you're either gonna have to offer me which has actually happened, which like that was the weirdest thing I've ever heard. So there was a recruiter who reached out for one of allegedly, that's made me suspicious. Allegedly reached out for on behalf of one of the main, like a pharmaceutical company or something like that, and they were looking for a new CTO. And I was thinking to myself, so you're looking for the head honcho for like one of the largest industries in the world and one of the largest ones in Europe, and you reach out to me. Well, I'm either flattered or something weird is going on here and you don't really know what you're looking for. So I didn't because like I couldn't do any research into it because I had to like accept it and like sort of just dismissed it because it seemed like weird that and I mean, if you're gonna go through a recruitment process like that, that's gonna be like, I don't know how long they're gonna do that evaluation, but I'm assuming months. But on average, guys, when someone reaches out with a role, they usually don't, some of them are like super covert about stuff, and I usually just laugh and say, yeah, sure, go and talk to someone else because I'm not going to waste my time. It's the same thing when people do, I have a lot of those as well, where you have recruiters who go and say, tell, oh, we're working with this and this. Let's have a expectation-less meeting. And I'm like, yeah, you're great. So this is me being basically, you're basically pulling me out to the podium so you can check if you want me or not. That's about it. So it's a complete waste of time because you basically just want to have a conversation about and about whether or not you're an interesting job. Like, you want to show off your work environment, or you want to see how well I am fitted for your work environment and so forth. So it's basically just a hidden way of saying, hey, let's do a recruitment process, but we're a little bit unsure if we're going to make you an offer or not. So we just want to talk to you. And some people really do enjoy this stuff, guys. I don't. I like to think that most of the time I have a fairly easy way of figuring out if a position of work is interesting to me or not, because I've been working in enough industries and environments now to be able to tell you that on average, guys, the archetype of company and the archetype of the industry that you're dealing with, or like the format, is basically always the same. You're almost always going to face exactly the same issues across the board, unless you are, as I said, like, the main difference is usually roles. Roles differ a lot. The work, the setup, literally everything else is almost identical from company to company. I've never seen it fail. I've never gone to any serious any company, it doesn't even have to be a purebred IT company, to see what the red thread like through everything, because it's basically the same setup everywhere. So to me, it's not that important to check, oh, this like, for an example, you can spit in the air, and basically, at least if when you're at a certain level of seniority, where it comes down, if you're going to start working for a recruitment company or something like that, or as a consultancy company, uh, it really doesn't matter. Honest to God, it doesn't matter which one you pick. I can basically promise you that. the thing like so when I talk to them, like they have different offers and so forth and so forth, but I know that it's the same. They're selling you as a product. It's the same deal regardless of where you go, and there are absolutely nuanced things that they will sell you on, like these novelty things, like, oh, we have kickoffs, or we have like learning lunches and these sort of thing. And I go, yeah, every single other company that is worth anything is doing the same thing. Uh, it might sound, if you're not that experienced with these things, guys, usually it sounds very nice if you're a junior or so forth, but the reality is that most companies are matching each other because the demand for software developers is sky high, the supply of the good ones is very low, so they're trying to it's a competition basically. How can we position ourselves so that we get the most amount of headcount? Because for a consultancy, headcount is basically more important than anything else. It's the same thing with the larger companies and so forth. Everybody has these different. It might be some variations here and here, but everybody's trying to give you these sort of novelty things and so forth. But usually the actual work, which is the thing that I care about, like what are we actually doing and so forth, is going to be the same. So for me, it's usually fine to just check if someone calls up and I'm interested, look at, okay, is it a is it a consultancy? If it's not, it's a product company. Okay, what is the product that they're dealing with? And then I usually go and default into the thing that I've told you before, guys. The thing that usually matters to me is what's the nature of the problem that I'm solving. In other words, what role do you have for me, and what is the actual thing that we're working on, the specifics. And usually the recruiters don't really have an answer to that. And in many cases they don't recruit for a specific role or something like that, and then I usually tell them just no immediately, because the odds of them having a role, like if they're, because usually, guys, you have to understand that the majority of the recruiters who contact you, they're recruiting for like a completely standard position, like software developer or something like that. And at the level that I have reached now, the level of challenge that I get from just doing the regular software development job is nothing. Basically, it's like I can do that job in my sleep at this point. And so the composition that I have now, for example, I actually got that not through just a regular recruiter. I got it because I have a friend, my old mentor. He is running a department at this company, basically, and basically said that it would be really cool if you came and worked with us, because we have a need for someone who can do all of these features and various things. He really knew basically what we were doing and sort of the challenges that we were facing, and wanted someone that he could trust to take on something that is more difficult than just doing the coding and like just doing, shipping stories. That's the sort of thing that that made me go, yeah, I can go and do that and so forth. But on average, I only check like very briefly what type of company it is. Is it what is the rough business of what they're doing? Because more research than that is sort of pointless. You will get all the details later if it seems interesting, but at this point, at the very least for me, I just assume that basically every position is going to be identical if it's just a software development gig. So what I want you to take away from this is that no, I don't really do a thorough research on the companies. You should. I can give you a pro tip for the ones of you who are going into, especially if you're in the earlier start of your careers. This is something I used to do. It's different for me now because I'm in a different position. If you are a more junior profile, or you're going to go into a startup or something like that, the research you should make is how old, or like what is the rough age and like experience level of your founders. And you should always make sure that you know roughly how much capital they have, like how stable is the startup. Because those high risk jobs, like I see this quite often, and it's happened many times, where like especially in the more junior profiles in the startup world, they usually don't really know how to run a company, so they run it either into the ground, or they burn through the budget, or they overhire and then they have to start firing people and so forth. So it can be a very, very volatile sort of ecosystem if you're not careful. So it's really good to know that they have enough funding for a certain amount of time. Then you can basically calculate roughly how much time you can spend in this company, given that everything works out for you. And the years, like I'm not an ageist or anything like that, but usually if you have like a bunch of young 20 something, you should be aware of that they're very much learning how to run a company while you're there. That's not a good or bad thing. It's just something to be aware of, because if you want a more stable work environment, it's less likely that you're going to find that if you're in these more high volatile environments and so forth, and the requirements on you might be different than if you work at like one of those super big super corporations that have like 100 million people working for them or something like that. But at least for me these days, I don't really do much research into the companies, because basically I know that I've worked for enough of them and been in contact with enough of them to know that they basically all offer the same sort of thing for the standard software development gigs. The salaries varies and the perks vary and so forth, but these are things that you can't really research. That they were going to tell you that in the interview, but the actual work itself is almost always identical when you are at the mid-level range of opportunities. If you get to my level now, where like you have more specialists work and things like that, it's a different story. But as I said, you can't really research that within the company. It really comes down to, does this seem like a cool interesting product to work on or something like that? And usually you figure that out with just a few Google searches and sort of asking yourself, does this seem like a cool place or not? But more than that, I usually don't go into things. Have a great day.